Okay, good evening. This is Thomas Freed on the Liberty Works Radio Network. This is the Truth Attack Hour, and yes, that's right. We're back. We're back with the Truth Attack. Okay, so we are the Liberty Works Radio Network, and we do need the support of the members of the listening audience to keep the network operating and the broadcast coming. So, if you enjoy the shows, the information, the topic, the lectures that I provide, the guests that the other shows provide, we sure would appreciate it. If you could find your way over to the LibertyWorksRadioNetwork.com website, if you're not already there listening online, and get yourself signed up as a monthly subscribing member. Even if it's as little as $10, $20, we do need your support to keep the network operating and to keep the broadcasts coming. So, we're one of the few networks in the country providing you with the real information, with the truth about what's going on, particularly with respect to the maladministration by the IRS, the DOJ, and the lower federal courts of the federal income tax, which is a complete and total fraud and has been completely exposed as such by the tax law change that occurred in December of 2017, made active as of January of 2018, 6 years ago, signed by Donald Trump, but enacted by Congress, where they declared that the constitutional authority for the federal income tax is not the 16th Amendment, which is what the federal courts have been lying to the American people and telling them, along with the IRS and the DOJ, for about 65 years now. It's not the 16th Amendment. Congress wrote a constitutional authority statement in November of 2017 that says the constitutional authority for the reenactment of Section 1, the tax imposed, the IRS personal federal income tax, is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. It's an indirect tax in the form of an impost, duty, or excise, where income is the yardstick that measures the amount of tax owed on the earnings derived from the taxable activity subject to the impost, duty, or excise. But if there is no impost, duty, or excise tax, you don't just tax the yardstick. There's nothing to measure. You're being defrauded into filing a Form 1040 that measures tax where none is imposed. You have a right to work, and rights are not taxable. Imposts tax foreign activity and foreign imports, and the original income tax legislation was enacted as a tariff act on imported goods, and that is collected from foreign persons and payments made to them. Non-resident aliens and foreign corporations are the subject of the collection of the tax. There was no collection of the income tax from American citizens until 1942 in the victory tax, and that wasn't even the income tax. It was an additional tax in the form of a 2-year-long war revenue measure. That was the first time in history the labors and the fruits of labor of the American people were subject to tax by the federal government. Not 1913. Nobody paid tax from 1913 to 1942 on their income derived from activities from occupations at common law within the 50 states. Nobody paid. It's right there in the 1939 code. It shows you who the classes of persons subject to the tax are. I've been through this with the videos. The law's right there. It's all published on the website, on the YouTube channel, and now I've rewritten the Simple Truth About Income Tax to be the Simple Truth About Income Tax V 2.0. It's just $6 at irszoom.com, and I expose all of this and provide you with the documents you need to defeat the IRS in court. They no longer can go to court claiming it's the 16th Amendment. And the reason why they've had to claim it is the 16th Amendment that authorizes them to enforce the income tax is because they've admitted Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 and the impost, duty, and excise don't reach labor. Impost taxes foreign imports and foreign persons. Duties tax exported goods, and excise tax the manufacture, consumption, and sale of commodities within the country, things like alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Excises tax certain licenses for certain occupations, like a license to sell alcohol, tobacco, or firearms, and it taxes the corporate privilege. where the privilege is the basis of the tax on the corporate person, and that makes everything the corporate person does taxable by excise. Rent, interest, dividend, compensation, earnings, any source of income to the corporation is taxable on the excise basis because the corporate person enjoys the privilege. But citizens have no such taxable privilege subject to any excise. And Title 15, Section 17 says the labor of a human being is not a commodity or article of commerce, which removes labor from subjectivity to excise taxation. So if there's no impost, duty, or excise tax that you owe, or that is imposed on your work or your license or your corporate activity, since you're not a foreign non-resident person, you're not subject to the collection of the tax or its payment. You never have been. It's not a direct tax on labor. And they've had to argue the 16th Amendment and direct tax because they've admitted Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 doesn't tax labor with legal effect or force of law as a tax. Labor isn't part of the impost, duty, or excise taxing power. So in order to defraud the American people for 65 years, since basically 1960, they've been lying to the American people, telling you it's a direct tax authorized by the 16th Amendment. Now, the Supreme Court specifically rejected that nonsensical argument in 1916 in the very first test cases. They said it's inherently indirect and it can't be direct because if we allow the amendment to be interpreted that way, even though the word direct isn't in the amendment, we would be engineering an irreconcilable inherent conflict within the Constitution between the 16th Amendment and the two Article 1 provisions that prohibit direct taxation unless laid in a proportion to the census and apportioned to the states for collection. And the 16th Amendment says the income tax will be a tax without apportionment or proportionate imposition. So if it's construed or interpreted to be direct, you've engineered an irreconcilable, inherent contradiction within the document. Law cannot destroy law. This is precisely why the Supreme Court said, as a tax without apportionment and without proportionate imposition, it has to be indirect because otherwise it would be an unconstitutional direct tax, without even using the word direct in the amendment, and without providing an enabling enforcement clause to let Congress write any new law to enforce this new power to tax directly and without limitation. No such law exists. No such power exists. Congress has never written any such law. All of the laws have been written to enforce Title 27, Part 70, excise taxation against alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, commodities, and the corporate person. The individual person has been bamboozled through the use of Section 61, which wasn't even part of the original legislation. It came into being 5 years later in 1918 as part of the Canadian Tax Treaty. Section 61, the original legislation, is a Canadian tax treaty. It doesn't apply to citizens in the 50 states. It never has, it never did. That's why nobody paid tax from 1918 to 1942, despite the fact that Section 61 existed in the form of Section 22A at the time. But nevertheless, it's never been reenacted by Congress with any greater applicability at law than it had in the original enactment of the Canadian Tax Treaty, which lasted for 75 years and expired in 1993. It lasted from 1918 to 1993, 75 years. And when it expired, Bill Clinton replaced it with NAFTA, eliminating taxation between the two countries. And NAFTA expired, and it's been replaced with the treaty agreement with Mexico and Canada that Trump signed. I forget the name of the agreement, but basically it imposes tariffs on the Mexican products and Canadian products if they don't deal with the United States honestly, which they're not. Neither country does. They dump all the products they produce here without penalty, and they penalize American products in those countries. So Trump set up a system of equivalency. You're going to penalize us, we're going to penalize you. You want free trade? Terminate your penalties on U.S. products in your country, and we'll terminate ours on yours. And by doing that, you encourage people to buy American because the foreign product becomes a little bit more expensive. That doesn't mean everybody's costs go up. It just means it costs more to buy foreign products instead of American products. And right now, of course, we need to support American industry, American economy, and American production because, in case you weren't paying attention, they just revised the job numbers. I told you last week the job numbers were going to be revised by as much as 1 million jobs. Well, it went down over 815,000 jobs. 815,000 jobs. All those wonderful, shining, nice jobs reports they've been reporting, denying we're in a recession, saying, look at the jobs reports, it's a strong economy. It just got wiped out. Every single one of the jobs report that was a beat has now a miss. Manufacturing jobs, none. None were created. Biden has lost manufacturing jobs in America because the economy is shutting down, because Main Street can't get access to capital, and prices are too expensive and too high, destroying the quality of life as people struggle to make ends meet, just paying the rent, paying the utilities, buying food, getting to and from work, and taking care of the family and the house on a day-to-day basis. Become destructive. The Democrat policy has become destructive of the quality of life. They're destroying America. So the income tax is a complete and total fraud. The fraud has been exposed in The Simple Truth About Income Tax, a 100-page PDF that you can buy and download immediately at irszoom.com. And you'll have the documents in hand that you can use to expose the fraud, to beat the IRS in court, to beat the DOJ in court, and to teach anybody in America who's interested in learning the truth and restoring their freedom, getting their paycheck back in these times of economic hardship, when every penny on the paycheck would help to make ends meet, and they're stealing 30%. Good God, how are you supposed to make ends meet when the government steals 30% of the paycheck right out of the gate? Of course not. Of course they need 2 jobs in the family and leave the kids to the state to be indoctrinated in their propaganda centers. That's right, they're not schools, they're propaganda centers. And they're not teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic, are they? They're teaching critical race theory and transgender dysmorphia. Gender mutilation is what they're teaching. Abortion on demand up to the 9th month. That's infanticide and murder. It's recognized as a manslaughter crime in the 8th or 9th month. If someone assaults a pregnant woman, kills the fetus but not the woman, they're still charged with a manslaughter for killing the infant, because in the 8th or 9th month of pregnancy, you have a viable human being. And if it's viable on the street when the robber assaults the woman, why isn't it viable in the hospital when the doctor does it? It is. It's a huge paradoxical contradiction. And it's one of the main reasons why the conservative and religious side of the table is so upset. There's no recognition of the value of life after the 6th month, which is mind-boggling, because you have a viable human being from the 7th month forward. Okay, well, we got into that right away, huh? So, you want to take back your paycheck, take back your country, take back your freedom, and help teach America what the truth is about the communist nature of the income tax? It's the second plank of the Communist Manifesto. That's what the courts have been enforcing on you. Communism. A heavy progressive or graduated income tax. That's where you find graduated tax brackets, is in the Communist Manifesto, designed to divide the population and light the country on fire under a class warfare system that destroys unified representation. That's what the judges have been enforcing. Communism. Outright communism, not constitutional taxation. It's time we take the country back, America. Stand up, speak up. I think I hear the first commercial break coming on here. So again, find your way over to the LibertyWorksRadioNetwork.com website. Get signed up. doing. What are we doing here? Okay, there, let's get the video set up right. Okay, so we have the Democratic coronation of Queen Kamala commencing tonight, or being finished tonight, I guess. And I've been watching this. I think the theme of this Democratic convention should be gaslighting America. Gaslighting America. Every single night, they're gaslighting America. This has been nothing but one stream of speaker after another who just lies, lies, lies. They're not talking about the last 4 years under the Democrat. They're talking about it as though Donald Trump had been president for the last 4 years. They're trying to blame him for everything the Democrats have done in the last 4 years. The increased crime, the immigration, the high prices, the inflation. Everything is Donald Trump's fault except the stock market. That's Joe Biden's fault. But the reality is, people, we have two parallel existences devolving here in America. Main Street and Wall Street. Wall Street is rolling in the trillions of dollars they printed for COVID. And Main Street can't get access to capital because of the inverted yield curve that has shut bank lending down. We've been in a recession since we had the 2 down quarters and the White House sent people out on stage to tell you that it wasn't a recession because they had redefined the term. It no longer is a recession because you have 2 down quarters. It's only a recession if the job reports are bad. But they were lying about the job reports for the whole year to make you think things were better than they are, when really they're much worse. They're much worse. Main Street is struggling. Small businesses shutting down. Prices are so high. Expenses are going through the roof. Rent, utility, food, costs, car, travel, hotels, everything has become substantially more expensive, and it's consumed America's disposable and excess income. Credit cards are now maxed out. Defaults are beginning to occur, and foreclosures are beginning to rise. America is stressed out because of the economic policies intentionally put in place by Joe Biden and the Federal Reserve Bank, raising the price of gasoline and oil by shutting down American energy independence was the real source of the inflation problem, because that's what triggered the initial price increases across the board in food and products on every store shelf in America. Of course, the excessive government spending was a source of the problem as well, but it was the increased energy costs that triggered the original price rises. And of course, it's all the excess currency that got it running off the board. But the only way to get back to an improved quality of life is to get rid of the excess energy costs being intentionally imposed on the American people by the Democratic nonsense policies of shutting down oil and energy and fracking. You need to go back and finish that pipeline and drill, baby, drill. You need to bring the price of gasoline and diesel fuel down so that the electric bills can go down, so that that excessive energy cost is removed from the cost of products on the shelves. This is the only way to improve the economy, and the Democrats aren't going to do it. They're lying to you when they say they're working to improve the quality of the middle class. They're the ones who destroyed it. She's lying when she says she doesn't want to tax tips. She was the tie-breaking vote that did tax tips. She's the one that taxed them. And she's not going to reverse her policy. And she can't do any of the things she says she'll do, because all of those things will require Congress to write law. And that ain't going to happen, is it? That ain't going to happen. So it's just gaslighting America. And of course, tonight they have the Dem coronation of Queen Kamala. Obama got out there and said, hope and joy, hope and joy. How about fear and desperation? Fear that I won't be able to pay the rent. Fear that I'll have a medical bill. Desperation in trying to make ends meet, keep the lights on and the house cool or heated. Fear and desperation is what the Democrat economic policies and energy policies have given the American people. Crime waves, fentanyl crime, cartel crime, now pile on immigrant crime. Not to mention the organized gang crimes and smash and grab looting that the Democrat mayors have been allowing in Democrat cities. So we have the most undemocratic nomination of a candidate in American history. Not one single vote from the American people. Not one single electoral college vote in any federal election ever. Oh, but she's coronated as the queen tonight. Nobody gets a say. And this is the giggler. The giggler. They're putting up the giggler as a candidate. She can't take anything seriously. Democracy. My ass. It's a democracy. It's a coronation by a party run amok. The National Socialist Party. The Democrat Party has been co-opted by the far-left radical wing of the Democrat Party. It's now the Socialist Party. That's why so many moderate Democrats feel abandoned and have actually moved to Trump's camp, who isn't really a far-right extremist. He's a populist right up the center. So, Joe Biden spoke on day one, but they didn't really want him speaking because they're afraid of what he says. Because he screws it up. He can't read the teleprompter. He reads the instructions. So what did they do? They dragged it out and pushed him out past prime time. He didn't even show up on a stage till 11:30. It occurred to me at the time, he probably hadn't been up that late in 4 years. They kept him up late to kick him out. Wasn't that sweet? So, they're gaslighting America. The whole media is gaslighting America, too, by not pinning her down on questions about these missing policy positions. Hope and joy? How do you get hope and joy out of the last 4 years of the Biden administration? Where is that? What hope and joy is there in America? They're diverting our fiscal budget to illegal aliens to put them up in luxury hotels. Meanwhile, the veterans are abandoned. American citizens are told, no, it's not for you. Give up your park. Give up your children's school. It's for the illegal aliens. The Democrats are running the country for the foreigners, the illegal aliens, the criminals. And they're not arresting and throwing out the cartels, despite the moments of show they put on where they arrest a few and make a big deal about it. The cartels are running the city streets of every Democrat city in the country. Openly running them. And Joe Biden, or Kamala, just like Joe Biden, Comrade Kamala, is a puppet. She's controlled. Joe's been a marionette on strings. You throw him out on stage, put words on the teleprompter, pull the strings. He dances and reads the words. Kamala's no better. Every time we've seen her speak independently and off script, she's thrown out nothing but gibberish nonsense. Gibberish nonsense. Oh, the significance of the passage of time. Passing is significant. Was it time or significance that I really wanted to talk about? Oh, well, the significance of time is very significant. Don't you admit? Don't you agree? And the press sits there and says nothing. Nothing. Absolutely insane. And what's her economic plan? Oh, that's right. She wants to raise taxes in a recession with Main Street struggling. She wants to let the Donald Trump tax cuts expire, which will raise taxes on everyone. Specifically, she wants to raise the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%. She wants to raise the capital gains tax to 44.6. You make some money on stock, they want half of it. 44%. 25% tax on unrealized gains? Are you insane? Are you going to give me a refund on unrealized losses? Well, if you're not going to give me a refund on unrealized losses, why the hell should I pay a tax on unrealized gains? It's fictional. It's theoretical. It's on paper. It isn't in the real world. You don't tax until it's in the real world and off the paper. What kind of idiots are these people? I mean, real idiots. They want price controls on food, energy, gas, rent, utilities. Price controls. This is Soviet era politics. These are the politics that destroyed the Soviet Union. And we already did this one. Nixon had price controls, and so did Carter. And look at how both of those administrations turned out. Catastrophically disastrous. No tax on tips. Liar! You're the one who taxed them just 2 years ago with the 51st vote in the Senate. Liar! 6K child tax credit, 25,000 to a first-time home buyer. Going to cost you $100 billion over 10 years. Oh, let's just print the money and spend it. You don't think that'll cause inflation? You don't think that'll cause inflation? It's because she's an idiot. She thinks inflation was caused by Donald Trump. He's an idiot. Inflation was caused by Democrats. The spending they insisted on doing and the incredibly stupid energy policy they put in place, which created an energy cost component that more than doubled for every single product in America, both its manufacture and its distribution and consumption. More than doubled. That's where your inflation came from. And Democrats did it. Now telling you they're going to solve it is like, okay, let's be simple. Letting the fox guard the henhouse? Letting the thief guard the bank? Letting the Federal Reserve Bank decide what's good for the bank or the country? Yeah, what do you think they're deciding, huh? You think they're deciding what's good for the country or the bank? You need to think about it. You're not thinking. So, Kamala is a fraud. The whole Democratic Party is a fraud. The theme at the convention should be gaslighting. Their declining quality of life. They've given us nothing but hardship and misery, fear and desperation, expensive energy, expensive gasoline, expensive diesel fuel, an immigration crisis that they're using to divert the budgets away from the American people to the illegal immigrants to buy their votes, who are being registered to vote and told to vote for Joe. Oh, I'm sorry. Now it's Kamala. Expensive food, higher taxes, more pain without any gain. That's what her economic policy promises America. More pain with no gain. Sounds like I hear the second break coming up. This is Thomas Fried on the Liberty Works Radio Network. Get signed up and get yourself a copy of The Simple Truth About Income Tax at irszoom.com. Take your country back. We'll be back in 5. Okay, this is Thomas Freed on the Liberty Works Radio Network. This is a Truth Attack Hour, and let's just go ahead and get right back into it. I've been talking about how fraudulent the Democratic National Convention has been in its presentation of the situation in America, the quality of life in America, and their policy proposals to the extent that any are known, because we haven't been given any details at all, and she's only put out this very brief outline which says raise taxes, raise taxes, raise capital gains, tax capital gains, raise the corporate tax rate, tax unrealized gains, and let the Trump tax cuts expire. She intends to raise taxes in a recession, and that's going to get us out. And that's going to stop inflation by eliminating the expense, right? Yeah, right. It's going to destroy. It's going to destroy the middle class, create two-class society. Aristocracy, the rulers, the board members, the government, the politicians, the pundits, the media stars, Hollywood, and the poor, the rest of the country, the peons and the serfs, whose labors and fruits of labor are stolen from them to service the debts run up with the master who's running the plantation, the Federal Reserve Bank. None of your tax dollars go in the Treasury as required by law, because there is no tax, remember? You're just allowing the collection of money under the guise and pretense of taxation and the misbelief that you're subject to it. But since it's not taxed, they don't have to put it in the Treasury, and they don't. They send it directly to the Federal Reserve Bank to collateralize the $35 trillion in debt, to allow them to lend Congress another $7 trillion next year. And you're reduced to the role of a peon, a serf, a debt slave. No whips and change. It's all done with financial extortion through the overseers working the peonage plantation, the corporations keeping the slaves and the peons in line. Just happy enough to eat, but never prosperous enough to move ahead or improve their lot in life. And the Democrat vision is an enlargement of that peonage plantation operation. The hope and joy. No, it's a nightmare. Obama's vision is a nightmare, a socialist nightmare, with high prices, a weak military, foreign influences working on the government and within your society, like Chinese police stations in Democrat cities, with expensive energy, expensive fuel, gasoline, diesel fuel, expensive operations, with wasteful green spending, EV mandates and nonsense, budgeting for aliens, prioritizing the budgeting for aliens over citizens, veterans, and the sick in America. Not to mention letting the crime wave continue and the fentanyl sellers to continue to operate. This is China waging war on the American people. Straight out, China waging war on the American people. The Democrats just let it go. They don't want to upset China. Joe got paid. He's in their pocket. And how about over at the Democrat convention? Did you notice that here, this party that doesn't want to have any identification necessary for people to vote is requiring identification in order for anyone to get into the convention or get into a Democrat event? And they're stalking the Democrat events with paid actors. They don't want real people because you can guarantee half the room is going to be throwing curse words at them. And they can't have that on the camera when they stage their media events. So they're kicking the regular people out of the restaurants and bringing in a couple of hundred staged actors to stage the reception for Kamala and Wall, so that they won't have to confront any questions or angry citizens, because there's a bunch of us out here, isn't there? So the Democrats are rigging their own crowds and demanding ID to get into a Democratic Party event. But they don't want anyone to have to show ID to be allowed to vote in a federal election. So, no dissent allowed. If the theme of the Democrat convention isn't gaslighting America, it should then be no dissent allowed. And what's this nonsense? They keep justifying all this inflationary government spending as investment, investment, investment. Government doesn't invest. They own nothing as a result of their spending. They own nothing. Government doesn't invest. There's no return. There's no asset. It's spending. It's tax and spend, tax and spend. It's not investment. Like, oh, you want to talk about investment? Okay. They've spent, what, $3 billion on their EV recharging program so far? They've built seven. Seven EV charging stations for $3 billion. Where's the return on that investment, you lying piece of crap? Oh, how about the school buses? What'd they spend? What'd they spend on that? 1.7 billion on school buses for how many buses? 70 school buses, 350,000 apiece. Buses cost 50 to 110 grand. Who got the 300 per bus? Oh, what kind of investment is that? Pay 6 times more than the market rate for the asset acquired. Oh, there's real shrewd investing for you. Oh, yeah, that's how I want my money invested. Don't lie to me. That's not investment, that's spending. And who got the money were their political party cronies and business partners. Not the American people. What we got was 7 EV stations. 7. Absolute fraud. Oh, and we're going to wire all the rural parts of the country for internet. Big investment. How many billions? You know how many homes have been wired? 0. 0. Seems they ran into some of the DEI hiring requirements attached to eligibility for those contracts. Turns out DEI doesn't want a string wire on a cable in the poles in the middle of winter, or the desert, or the city, where the workers get robbed by the crime wave, where the trucks get robbed by the illegal immigrants looking for anything to snatch and grab and sell to get by another day on the fentanyl. Oh my God. Now, there's no investment. Every time the word investment comes out of the mouth of a politician, they should be hit with 100 tomatoes. Every single person in the crowd, lie to me. Investment. You pig. You pig. You Orwellian pig. And I said, they've revised the jobs reports down 815,000. There were no beats. They're all misses. We lost manufacturing jobs. America is in decline. They used the jobs reports to claim we weren't in a recession, and that was all fraudulent. They made it up. This is in addition to the revisions they already made at the end of each month, a month later, where they brought them all downward initially, and now they've revised them down collectively. And if you look at the stats, the state of the economy is exposed. It's not good. It's weak. It's getting worse. You lost manufacturing jobs. They haven't brought any manufacturing jobs back. Any labor union member that votes for the Democrats is putting the pistol to his head and pulling the trigger. The only question is, how many bullets did you put in the revolver before you started pulling the trigger? Do you get 1 pull or 5? So, the crowds are rigged. Economic reports are rigged. The policy programs are rigged. It's all straight up lies. And the Democrats keep saying, oh, the crime's gone down. The crime's gone down. The crime statistics show crime's gone down. Yeah, when you stop recording crime as crime, the crime statistics go down. But if somebody steals $800 worth of goods, the fact that it doesn't get reported because it doesn't exceed the $1,000 minimum for the police to do anything, that doesn't mean it's not a crime. That just means you stopped reporting crimes of less than $1,000. And guess what? That's most of the crime. So of course the statistics went down. You Orwellian pigs stopped recording it. So you can lie about the situation you have created. Joe says he wants his legacy to be, I cured the economy. You killed it, you moron! You killed it! You didn't cure anything. You killed it! And if we put the Democrats back in power, we may not be able to recover from 4 more years of this insane economic policy. Trump can settle the Ukrainian war on day one. You don't need to be locked in a war in Europe for another 4 years. Putin has already expressed willingness to settle. You're just going to have to settle with where the lines are now, just like every other war in history. And all you have to do to stop the war is tell the Ukrainians, accept a settlement or we're going to stop giving you money to fight. And stop giving you weapons. You can close that out on day one, just like he said. And you can reverse energy policy on day one, and you can reverse immigration policy on day one. Because Trump's not going to be a dictator on day one. He's going to do exactly what Joe Biden did and use executive orders to get rid of all the policies his predecessor put in place with his insanity of socialism. Not law, socialism, democracy, rule of the majority. That's why they keep yelling, democracy, democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. The difference is in a democracy, the majority rules. In a republic, the law controls everyone and protects the single individual from the entire majority of everybody else. The law applies to everyone the same, and of course, that's the problem with the income tax. It's created a class warfare system where we've put into the minds of the American people that it's okay, it's perfectly okay to have one set of laws for the rich and one set of laws for the poor. But if you buy into that, I can guarantee you the rich will own you. Because whenever you have class legislation, the wealthy buy the legislation. The law never ends up helping the poor. It always helps the wealthy. What are you, idiots? Either the law is the same for everyone or you'll be ruled by the aristocracy, just as you are now being ruled, not represented. Not represented. A class warfare system doesn't allow for unified representation. It makes damn sure that every political candidate and politician has to pick one class or the other to represent. You're not allowed to represent the whole of the people. And every warfare event that occurs on the streets of America, both sides call out for the politicians to step in and assume more power to end the conflict they engineered with the class legislation they put in place, to seize power at the behest of the people. While the conflict keeps the people so distracted in the class warfare system, they don't notice it's the political class that's looting the treasury and destroying the quality of life by destroying the currency, because as goes the currency, so goes the fate of the nation. As goes the currency, so goes the fate of the nation. The Democrats are destroying the currency to compel and enable the creation of a new world order of the global village, where you get ruled by a council of foreigners from 10,000 miles away. And Joe is going to prison. Joe is going to prison if he doesn't resign and let Kamala pardon him. They're after him. They've got the bank records on $25 million from the China accounts. He's going to prison. They're going to get him in the next legislature if he doesn't resign and make let Kamala pardon him. That's the only way he's getting out of this. We'll be back next week with more. Oh, I guess we need to put in here.